I signed away my dignity the day my daughter told me I was never really family. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 66 years old. And 3 months ago, I sat in a cold law office signing inheritance papers while my only child told me I was no longer welcome in the home where I'd raised her grandson for 5 years. She looked me in the eye and said the words that still burn. You were never really family, Mom. You just stayed because it was convenient. But hidden in those papers I signed, one thing she'll never take from me. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday afternoon. Not the gentle kind that makes everything smell clean. The angry kind that soaks through your coat in 30 seconds and turns the world grey. I remember because I stood outside that law office for almost 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold, from something else, something I'd felt building for months but kept pushing down, the way you ignore a bad tooth until it finally cracks. Vanessa had called me 2 days earlier. Mom, we need you to come sign the estate papers. Dad's been gone 6 months now. It's time to finalize everything. Her voice had that efficient tone she used at work, the one that made people do things quickly without asking questions. I'd heard her use it on Noah's teachers, on the gardener, on Derek when she wanted something done her way. I never thought she'd use it on me. Of course, sweetheart, I'd said, because that's what I always said. What time? 2 o'clock, Henderson and Associates, downtown. Don't be late. She hung up before I could say I loved her. I should have known then. But you don't want to believe it when it's your own child, do you? You tell yourself they're busy, stressed, going through their own grief. You make excuses because the alternative is too horrible to consider. The law office was one of those places that smells like leather and old money. Everything was dark wood and brass fixtures. The receptionist barely looked at me when I walked in, just pointed down a hallway with fingernails so perfectly manicured they looked fake. Conference room B, they're waiting. They. That word should have warned me. But I was still operating under the assumption that they meant my family, my daughter, maybe Derek, her husband, maybe even little Noah, though it seemed unlikely they'd bring a 7-year-old to sign legal documents. I was so stupid. The conference room had windows that looked out over the city, rain streaming down the glass like tears. Vanessa sat at the head of a long table, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Her hair was pulled back so tight it made her face look severe, sharp. When did she start looking at me like that? Derek sat beside her, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up when I entered, gave me a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes, then went back to his screen. He'd always been handsome in that generic way successful men often are. Good jaw, expensive haircut, eyes that never quite focused on you when you were talking. Mom, sit. Vanessa gestured to a chair across from her, not beside her, across, like a business meeting. My stomach dropped, but I told her to shut up. I sat, smoothed my skirt, the same navy skirt I'd worn to Richard's funeral. My husband, her father, the man who'd loved us both more than anything in this world. 6 months he'd been gone. Sometimes it felt like 6 years, sometimes 6 minutes. Where's Noah? I asked, trying to sound normal, trying to be the grandmother, the mother, the woman who still belonged here. With the nanny, Vanessa said, not looking up from the papers she was organizing. This won't take long. The lawyer walked in then. Mr. Henderson, I assumed. He was exactly what you'd picture. Mid-50s, grey at the temples, expression carefully neutral in that way lawyers learn to make everything seem routine. Mrs. Harper, he said, extending his hand. His grip was professional but not warm. Thank you for coming. We'll make this as quick as possible. He started talking about the estate, Richard's estate, my husband's life reduced to assets and distributions and tax implications. I tried to follow along, but the words kept sliding past me like water. The house went to Vanessa. That made sense. We'd been living with her and Derek for the past 5 years anyway, after Richard's first heart attack. Our own home had been sold to pay for his medical care and the endless rehabilitation that insurance wouldn't cover. the retirement accounts, split between Vanessa and some charities Richard had supported. The life insurance mostly to Vanessa, with a small portion designated for Noah's college fund. Everything laid out so neatly, so final. And this section here, Mr. Henderson said, sliding a document toward me, acknowledges the transfer of Mr. Harper's personal effects and remaining assets to his designated beneficiaries. If you'll sign here and initial here and date at the bottom. I picked up the pen. It was heavy, one of those expensive ones that probably cost $100, and wrote no better than a Bic. That's when Vanessa spoke. Mom, we need to talk about your living situation. The pen froze halfway to the paper. I looked up at her, really looked. Her face was smooth, controlled, carefully arranged into an expression of professional concern that made my blood run cold. My what? Your living situation, she repeated like I was slow, like I hadn't heard the words, only the meaning. Derek and I have been discussing it, and we think it's time you found your own place. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. I don't understand. Derek finally put down his phone. He had the grace to look uncomfortable, at least. It's just that with Dad gone and Noah getting older, we need to think about the family's needs, our needs, as a nuclear family. Nuclear family, like I was radioactive, something to be contained. But I live with you, I said, and hated how small my voice sounded, how confused. I help with Noah. I cook dinner 4 nights a week. I do the grocery shopping, the laundry. I pick him up from school when you're working late. And we appreciate that, Vanessa cut in. We really do. But Mom, let's be honest. That arrangement made sense when Dad was alive and you were both struggling. We were helping you, supporting you. But now, she trailed off, letting the implication hang there like smoke. Now you're just a burden. Vanessa, my voice cracked. Are you saying you want me to leave? I'm saying, she continued, and her tone was so reasonable, so calm, like she was explaining basic math to a child, that it's time for everyone to move into their own spaces. You're still young, healthy. You could get a nice apartment, maybe find some part-time work, join some social groups for people your age. People my age, I repeated. I'm 66, Vanessa. I'm your mother. And I love you, she said, but there was no love in her eyes. But this isn't working anymore. Derek and I need our privacy. Noah needs consistency. And honestly, Mom, you've been so depressed since Dad died. Maybe some independence would be good for you, help you move forward. Each word was a slap, calculated, precise. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the documents at hand. No, I said, surprising myself. No, I want to understand this. Vanessa, you're asking me to leave the home where I've lived for 5 years, where I've raised your son while you built your career, where you've lived rent-free, Derek interrupted, and there it was, the real issue. Look, Evelyn, we've supported you financially for years. Your husband's medical bills wiped out your savings. We took you in. We gave you a place to stay, food to eat. We've covered everything. I've earned my keep, I said, and my voice was shaking now. I've taken care of your home, your child. I've given up everything. You had nothing to give up, Vanessa said, and her words were ice. Mom, let's not pretend this was some noble sacrifice. You had nowhere else to go. We took you in because you were desperate. The room went silent, except for the rain against the windows. That's not true, I whispered. Richard and I sold our house to pay for his care. We had a plan. You were going to what? Vanessa leaned forward. Move into a nursing home, live on Social Security. Mom, you were broken. We saved you from that, and now I'm trying to give you a chance to build something of your own instead of living in our shadow. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like this was generosity, not abandonment. I looked at Derek. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He shuffled papers uncomfortably. I looked back at my daughter, this woman I'd carried, nursed, raised, loved with every piece of my heart for 38 years, and I didn't recognize her. When? I managed to ask. We were thinking end of the month, Derek said. That gives you a few weeks to find a place. We can help with first month's rent, of course. Security deposit. Consider it a parting gift. Parting gift. Like I was an employee being let go. Severance for services rendered. And Noah? I asked because I needed to know. Needed to hear her say it. Vanessa's expression didn't change. Noah has us, his parents. He doesn't need a grandmother hovering around confusing him about family structure. I'm not confusing him. I'm loving him. You're smothering him, she corrected. All those bedtime stories, the special breakfast, the constant attention, you're making him soft. Derek and I are trying to raise a strong, independent child. Your involvement isn't helping. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. Not yet. But cracked. Like ice on a pond when the temperature drops just enough. I see, I said quietly. So you'll sign the papers? Mr. Henderson asked, trying to move this along. This efficient dissolution of my life. I looked down at the document in front of me. Pages and pages of legal language I didn't fully understand. Somewhere in there, buried in subsections and clauses, was my husband's last will and testament, his final decisions, his goodbye. And Vanessa wanted me to sign it all away without even reading it carefully. I need a moment, I said. Mom, there's nothing complicated here. I said I need a moment. My voice came out harder than I intended. Vanessa blinked, surprised. Derek's eyebrows went up. Good. Let them be surprised. Let them see that I wasn't completely broken yet. I started reading, really reading, not just skimming past the legal jargon, but forcing myself to understand each section. It was slow going. The lawyer words tangled together, deliberately obscure, but then I saw it. Page 17, subsection D. The beachfront property located at 1847 Lighthouse Road, previously held in trust, hereby transfers full ownership to Evelyn Marie Harper, as per the deceased's explicit final instructions dated March 12th. I read it again, then again. Lighthouse Road. I knew that address. Richard and I had driven past it once, years ago, on a weekend trip to the coast. He'd pointed out a small house perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, paint peeling, garden overgrown, but the view. This place will be worth millions someday, he'd said. Right now, it's nothing, but someday, I'd laughed. We can barely afford our mortgage, honey. Dreaming about beach houses isn't going to help. But he'd looked at it so wistfully, the way people look at things they'll never have but can't help wanting. When had he bought it? Why hadn't he told me? Mrs. Harper, Mr. Henderson was watching me. Is there a problem? I looked up at Vanessa. She was checking her phone, bored with this whole proceeding, eager to finish and get back to her important life. Derek was looking out the window at the rain. Neither of them had read these papers. They just assumed everything was going their way. Why wouldn't they? Everything always had. No problem, I said slowly. Just want to be sure I understand everything. I kept reading. Page 18 explained that the property had been purchased 12 years ago, when Richard's mother died and left him a small inheritance. He'd bought it cash, kept it separate from our marital assets, maintained it through a property management company, and never told me. Why? Page 19 had the answer, sort of. A letter from Richard to Mr. Henderson, dated just 6 months before Richard's death, before the final heart attack, when he knew probably that he didn't have much time left. Concerned about Vanessa's increasingly controlling behavior toward Evelyn. If something happens to me, I fear my wife will have nowhere to go. This property is her security, her escape. Make sure she understands she owes nothing to anyone. She's earned her freedom. My eyes burned. Richard had known. He'd seen what I'd been too close to see, too desperate to admit. He'd watched our daughter transform into someone who valued money and status over love, over family, and he'd protected me the only way he could. Mom? Vanessa was looking at me now, impatient. Can you sign? Some of us have actual jobs to get back to. The crack inside me widened. Some of us have actual jobs. Like raising her child wasn't work, like keeping her house wasn't work, like the 5 years I'd spent making her life easier so she could have her career and her perfect family meant nothing. Of course, I said. I signed the papers, every page. My hand was steady. Mr. Henderson collected them, looking relieved. Wonderful. That concludes our business. Mrs. Harper, you'll receive copies of everything in the mail within a week. Thank you. I stood. Vanessa stood. Derek stood. We all stood there awkwardly, this family that wasn't really a family anymore, if it ever had been. So, Vanessa said, slinging her designer purse over her shoulder, end of the month. We'll help you pack, of course. I can give you some realtor numbers, places that cater to seniors. That won't be necessary. Mom, you can't afford anything in a decent neighborhood on your own. I said it won't be necessary. Something in my voice made her stop. Made both of them stop. I have somewhere to go, I continued. You don't need to worry about me anymore. Where? Derek asked, confused. That's not your concern. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Mom, if you think you're going to guilt trip us into... I'm not guilt tripping anyone, I said, and I was surprised by how calm I sounded. How clear. You've made your feelings very clear, your priorities. I understand completely. Good, Vanessa said, but she looked uncertain now, like she'd expected tears, begging, the usual maternal capitulation. Then we're on the same page. Absolutely. I picked up my purse, walked toward the door. Mom, Vanessa called after me. Aren't you going to say anything else? I turned back, looked at her, the stranger wearing my daughter's face. What would you like me to say? I don't know. Goodbye. Thank you for understanding. Goodbye, Vanessa. I left. The rain had gotten worse. I didn't have an umbrella. Didn't matter. I walked to my car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic that barely ran, and sat in the driver's seat while water pounded the roof like fists. Then I cried. Not delicate tears. Not quiet, dignified sadness. I cried the way you cry when something inside you dies. Loud, ugly, gasping sobs that hurt my chest and made my nose run, and left me exhausted. How long had it been building? This casual cruelty, this slow erasure. I thought about the morning after Richard died. How Vanessa had stood at his hospital bedside, dry-eyed, checking her phone while I held my husband's cooling hand. How she'd said, "We need to make arrangements quickly. I have a presentation on Monday." I thought about the time Noah fell off his bike and scraped his knee bloody, and I'd rushed to comfort him, and Vanessa had snapped, "Stop babying him, Mom. He needs to learn to toughen up." I thought about last Christmas when I'd spent 3 days cooking everyone's favorite meals, and Vanessa had barely touched the food because she was on some new diet. Derek had said, "Evelyn, you really didn't need to go through all this trouble." Like my love was trouble. I thought about all the tiny cuts, the small dismissals, the ways I'd been slowly trained to shrink, to need less, to expect less, to be less. When had I become so invisible? My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Don't forget to pack Dad's things. We're donating them to Goodwill next week." Not asking, telling. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I opened my browser and typed in the address. 1847 Lighthouse Road. The property management company had a website, photos. The house was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, kitchen that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1970s. But the view, oh God, the view, ocean stretching to the horizon, cliffs, sky, freedom, it was mine. Not theirs, not contingent on their approval or charity, mine. I started the car and drove. Not back to Vanessa's house. I couldn't face that place right now. Couldn't walk into that beautiful prison where I'd spent 5 years convincing myself I was needed. I drove to a motel. The cheap kind off the highway with stained carpets and a vending machine that probably didn't work. Paid for 3 nights with the credit card Richard had insisted I keep in my own name. Always have your own money, he'd told me once years ago. Your own accounts. Never depend on anyone completely, even me. I thought he was being paranoid. Now I understood he was being wise. The motel room smelled like cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The bed sagged in the middle. The TV got 5 channels, all fuzzy. It was perfect. I lay down on that terrible bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling and thought about my life. Really thought about it. No distractions, no responsibilities. No one needing me to be anything but myself. When had I last done that? The room was quiet except for the highway traffic outside. No Noah calling for bedtime stories. No Vanessa asking me to run errands. No Derek giving me that pitying look that said, "Poor Evelyn, nothing left but memories," just silence. And in that silence something shifted. The crack inside me stopped spreading. Settled, hardened. I wasn't broken. I was breaking free. My phone rang. Vanessa. I stared at her name on the screen until it went to voicemail. She called again, finally sent a text. "Where are you? We need to talk about logistics. Call me." I didn't. Instead, I called the property management company. A bored-sounding woman answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi," I said. "My name is Evelyn Harper. I own the property at 1847 Lighthouse Road. I'd like to move in as soon as possible." There was a pause. Computer keys clicking. "Oh," the woman's voice perked up. "Mrs. Harper, we've been managing this property for years, but we've never actually spoken to the owner. Mr. Henderson handles everything. Let me pull up the file." More clicking. "Okay, so the house is currently vacant, has been for about 6 months. Last tenant moved out shortly after. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Your husband's death is noted here in the file." "Thank you," I said automatically. "The property is yours free and clear," she continued. "No mortgage, taxes paid through the end of the year. Would you like us to prepare it for occupancy? It'll need cleaning, utilities turned on, that sort of thing. How long will that take? 3 days, maybe 4? "Make it 3, I said. I'll be there Monday morning." "Wonderful. I'll email you the details and keys will be waiting at our office." "Oh, and Mrs. Harper, I don't know if you've seen the place recently, but the location is incredible. Property values in that area have gone through the roof. You're sitting on quite an asset." "I know," I said, and this time I smiled. This time, I spent the next 3 days in that motel room planning. Not elaborate revenge schemes, nothing like that, just practical steps, one after another. First, I called a locksmith and had him meet me at Vanessa's house while she was at work. Derek was there, but he didn't question it when I said I needed to collect some of Richard's things. He just nodded and went back to his home office. I packed everything that mattered. Richard's journals. He'd kept them for decades, leather-bound books filled with his neat handwriting. His watch, his wedding ring, photos, the quilt his grandmother made, the compass his father carried in World War II. Nothing valuable to anyone but me. I also packed my own things. Not much. Clothes that actually fit. The few pieces of jewelry Richard had given me. My books. My mother's china tea set that I'd kept carefully wrapped in a hall closet because Vanessa said it didn't match her aesthetic. It took 2 trips to load everything into my car. Derek appeared in the garage on the 2nd trip. "Moving out early?" "Just to temporary housing," I said. Not a lie. The beach house would be temporary too, in a sense. Everything was temporary, while I look for a permanent place. He nodded, relieved, probably glad I wasn't making a scene. "That's good, smart. Hey, listen, Evelyn, I'm sorry about how that meeting went. Vanessa can be direct, but we do appreciate everything you've done for us, for Noah." "Where is Noah?" I asked. "School, then he's got soccer practice, then tutoring. You know how it is." "Right." I did know. Knew that 7-year-old Noah's schedule was managed down to the minute. Knew that Vanessa had him in advanced everything. Math, reading, language classes. Knew that he barely had time to be a kid. Knew that I'd been the only softness in his rigidly controlled life. "Can you tell him something for me?" I asked Derek. "Sure. Tell him his grandmother loves him very much, and I'll always be here if he needs me." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Evelyn, we talked about this. It's better for everyone if we make a clean break. Help Noah adjust to the new family dynamic without confusion." "Just tell him," I interrupted. "Please." "Okay," he said, but I knew he wouldn't. or he'd phrase it in some way that made it sound like I was abandoning Noah instead of being discarded. Didn't matter. Noah would know the truth eventually. Kids always do. I drove away from that house, that beautiful, soulless house with its perfect landscaping and designer furniture, and I didn't look back. The coast was 2 hours north. The property management office was in a small town that smelled like salt and pine. The woman I'd spoken to on the phone, Margie, her name tag said, handed me the keys with a genuine smile. "You're going to love it," she said. "It's been empty too long. Houses need people. They get lonely otherwise." I thought that was a strange thing to say, but I thanked her. The drive to Lighthouse Road took another 15 minutes, winding up through hills covered in wild grass and stunted trees bent by constant wind. The road ended at my property, a small house with grey shingles and white trim, sitting on 3 acres of cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I sat in the car for a long time just looking at it. Richard had bought this 12 years ago, hidden it away, protected me. "Thank you," I whispered, though he couldn't hear me. "Thank you for seeing what I couldn't." The house was small but solid. The floors creaked. The kitchen was ancient. The bathroom had pink tile from the 1960s. But the windows looked out over the ocean, and the view made me cry all over again. Not sad tears this time, something else. Something like hope. I unpacked slowly, put Richard's journals on a shelf, his watch on my nightstand, hung photos on walls that needed paint, made myself dinner, canned soup, crackers, nothing special, and ate it sitting on the back porch, watching the sun set over the water. My phone buzzed constantly. Vanessa, Derek. Unknown numbers that might have been them calling from work. I turned it off. That night I slept better than I had in years. The ocean sounds rolled through the open window, constant and ancient and indifferent to human drama. I was 66 years old, and for the first time since Richard died, I wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Monday morning, I woke to seagulls screaming and went for a walk down to the beach. The stairs were steep and my knees complained, but I made it. Stood on the sand with waves washing over my feet, cold enough to make me gasp. I was alive. I had survived. And somewhere in the city, 2 hours south, my daughter was probably just realizing I'd taken more from that lawyer's office than she'd given me permission to take. I didn't hear from Vanessa for 3 weeks. 3 entire weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. And honestly, it was the most peaceful I'd felt in 5 years. I spent those weeks learning how to live alone again. Really alone. Not just physically by myself. I'd been that plenty of times when Vanessa and Derek were at work and Noah was at school. But alone in the way that matters. Without waiting for someone to need me. Without measuring my worth by how useful I could be. It was harder than I expected. The first morning I woke up at 6 out of habit, ready to make Noah's breakfast and pack his lunch. Then I remembered, he wasn't here, would never be here. I stood in the kitchen for 10 minutes, staring at the old refrigerator, before I realized I was crying again. You don't just stop being a mother, a grandmother, even when they don't want you anymore. But slowly, day by day, I started building something new. I cleaned the house top to bottom, found a local handyman to fix the leaking faucet and the loose boards on the porch, planted herbs in the overgrown garden because I'd always wanted an herb garden, and Vanessa said they attracted bugs. I read Richard's journals, all of them, front to back, years and years of his thoughts, his worries, his love for me written in ink that had faded but never disappeared. The entries from the last 2 years were the hardest to read. Vanessa barely looked at Evelyn today during lunch, just kept checking her phone while her mother tried to tell her about the book she's reading. When did our daughter become so cold? Derek made a comment about us being a financial burden, said it like a joke, but Evelyn's face fell. She pretended not to hear. I'm worried about what will happen when I'm gone. Who will protect her from them? Bought the lighthouse property today. Haven't told Evelyn. She'd insist we can't afford it, but my mother's inheritance covered it completely. It's not much now, but the location is perfect. 20 years from now, maybe 30, it'll be worth something. More importantly, it's somewhere Evelyn can go if she needs to escape. Insurance against the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is looking more likely. Vanessa told Evelyn today that she's too involved with Noah, that she needs to respect boundaries with her own grandson, the boy who cries for his grandmother when he has nightmares. I wanted to say something, but Evelyn stopped me, always making excuses for her, always hoping Vanessa will remember how to love. I sat on the porch and read those words until the sun set and the pages became too dark to see. Then I read them again, by lamplight. Richard had known. He'd seen everything I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. And he tried to tell me in his gentle way, but I hadn't wanted to hear it. Because admitting your child doesn't love you the way you love them, that's a special kind of death. The journal entry from March 12th, the date on the property transfer document, was just 2 lines. Made it official today. The house is hers alone. Henderson has instructions. If I die, Evelyn gets the lighthouse property free and clear. No one can take it from her. Not even our daughter. Especially not our daughter. I pressed my hand against those words like I could reach through time and touch him. You knew, I whispered. You knew she'd throw me away. The ocean crashed against the cliffs below, indifferent and eternal. On day 16 of my new life, I was in town getting groceries when I ran into Margie from the property management office. She was coming out of the post office with an armful of packages. Mrs. Harper? She smiled like we were old friends. How are you settling in? Good, I said, and meant it. The house is wonderful. I'm so glad. You know, I was thinking there's a community center in town that does activities for residents. Art classes, book clubs, that sort of thing. Might be a nice way to meet people. I must have made a face because she laughed. Not interested in watercolor painting? It's not that, I said. I'm not sure I'm ready for organized socializing. Fair enough. But if you change your mind, they do a coffee hour Friday mornings, very casual, no commitment required. I thanked her and left, but her words stuck with me. When was the last time I'd done something just for myself? Not for Richard, not for Vanessa, not for Noah. Just because I wanted to. I couldn't remember. That night, I made myself a real dinner. Not canned soup or frozen meals, but actual cooking. Roasted chicken with herbs from my garden. Mashed potatoes, green beans, the kind of meal I used to make for Richard on Sundays. I set the table properly. Used the good dishes, my mother's china that Vanessa had called outdated. Poured myself a glass of wine, and I ate alone, watching the sunset through the window, and it was okay. Better than okay. It was mine. I was on day 21 when my phone rang at 7 in the morning. I'd turned it back on a week earlier, figuring Vanessa had forgotten about me by now, moved on to her perfect life without the burden of her mother weighing her down. I should have known better. The caller ID said Derek, not Vanessa. That was the first warning sign. Hello? Evelyn? His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. About what? You know what? I sat up in bed, suddenly very awake. I really don't. The property, Salam, he said, and there it was. The beachfront property on Lighthouse Road. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. What about it? Vanessa's lawyer called yesterday. Apparently there was an asset in Richard's estate that wasn't properly disclosed. A very valuable asset. One that should have been part of the general distribution. Should have been? Don't play dumb, Evelyn. You knew about that house. You signed papers transferring it into your name exclusively, papers that gave you sole ownership of property worth, he stopped, like the number physically hurt him, worth at least $3 million. $3 million. I'd known the property was valuable. Margie had mentioned the area was booming. But $3 million? Richard left it to me, I said quietly. It was his to leave. It was a marital asset. No. My voice came out harder than I expected. It wasn't. Check the documentation. Richard purchased it with inheritance money from his mother before we got married. He maintained it separately throughout our marriage. Legally, it was never marital property. Silence on the other end. Then, how do you know that? Because I read the papers before I signed them. Something you and Vanessa apparently didn't do. Evelyn, Derek's tone shifted, became placating, the voice he probably used on difficult clients. Let's be reasonable here. That property is worth more than you could ever need, more than you could ever use. It's sitting there empty while you're living in. Where are you living, by the way? That's not your concern. Come on, we're family. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. Like you took care of me when you kicked me out. The words came out before I could stop them. Another pause. That was Vanessa. I didn't. You sat there, I interrupted. You sat there in that conference room and told me I was a financial burden, that Noah needed to be protected from my influence. You looked me in the eye and calculated exactly how much my 5 years of unpaid labor was worth to you. First month's rent and a security deposit. That was the price tag you put on raising your son. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been treating me like family instead of hired help. Fair would have been including me in decisions about my own living situation instead of presenting it as a done deal. Fair would have been letting me say goodbye to my grandson instead of erasing me from his life like I never existed. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. Finally. I heard voices in the background, Vanessa saying something sharp. My wife wants to talk to you, Derek said. I'm sure she does. The phone rustled as it changed hands. Then Vanessa's voice, cold and precise. Mom, this is ridiculous. You need to sign that property over to the estate so it can be distributed properly. No. Excuse me? I said no, Vanessa, it's my property. Dad made sure of that. He wanted me to have it. Dad was dying and not thinking clearly. He was thinking perfectly clearly, I cut in. Clear enough to see what you'd become. Clear enough to protect me from you. Protect you? Her voice rose. I've been protecting you for 5 years, housing you, feeding you, giving you purpose. You've been using me, I said, and something inside me snapped. Using me to raise your child while you climbed your career ladder. Using me to keep your house and cook your meals and make your life easier. And the second I was no longer useful, you threw me away. Don't you dare pretend that was protection. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing, I was shouting now, years of swallowed words finally breaking free. You gave me a room in your house and expected gratitude. You gave me access to my grandson and held it over my head like a favor. You gave me the scraps of your attention when you had nothing better to do. That's not generosity, Vanessa. That's cruelty with a bow on it. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth. Stand up for myself. Refuse to hand over the one thing your father made sure you couldn't take from me. That property belongs to this family. I am family. My voice cracked. I'm your mother. I carried you. I raised you. I loved you through every stage of your life, even when you made it very clear you couldn't be bothered to love me back. But apparently that doesn't count. Apparently family only matters when there's money involved. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. Fine, keep your precious house. Live there alone with your self-righteousness, but don't expect to be part of this family anymore. Don't expect to see Noah. Don't expect birthday calls or holiday visits or any of the things you think you're entitled to. I never expected those things, I said softly. I just hoped for them. There's a difference. We're done here. Yes, I agreed. We are. I hung up before she could. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the phone, waiting for it to ring again, for Vanessa to call back with more threats, more demands. It didn't ring. That was somehow worse. I got dressed and went for a walk down the beach. The morning was grey, threatening rain, and the ocean looked angry. Waves crashed against the rocks with enough force to send spray 20 feet in the air. I walked until my legs ached. until the cold wind made my face numb, until I couldn't feel the shaking anymore. By the time I got back to the house, there were 17 missed calls, all from Vanessa or Derek, 3 voicemails I didn't listen to, a dozen texts that all said variations of the same thing. Call us, we need to talk, don't be unreasonable. I blocked both numbers. Then I called Mr. Henderson, the lawyer. Mrs. Harper, he said, sounding surprised. How can I help you? I need to make sure my property is protected. The Lighthouse House. My daughter is claiming it should have been part of the general estate distribution. Papers shuffled. Let me pull up the file. One moment. I waited, watching the ocean through my kitchen window. A seal was swimming just beyond the breakers, its dark head bobbing in the waves. Right, Mr. Henderson said. The Lighthouse Road property. No, Mrs. Harper, you're completely protected. Your husband purchased that property with non-marital funds and maintained it separately throughout your marriage. He filed a declaration of separate property with the county clerk's office. It was never part of the marital estate, which means it wasn't subject to distribution upon his death. He could leave it to whomever he chose, and he chose you. So Vanessa can't contest it. She could try, but she'd lose. The documentation is ironclad. Your husband was very thorough. He paused. If I may say so, Mrs. Harper, Richard spoke to me several times about his concerns regarding your daughter. He was quite explicit that this property was meant to be your security, your independence. Thank you, I managed. Of course, if your daughter or her lawyer contact you again about this, refer them to me. I'll handle it. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and cried again. But this time, mixed in with the grief and anger and hurt, there was something else. Relief. Richard had protected me, even in death, even when he couldn't hold my hand or tell me everything would be okay. He'd protected me. I wasn't homeless, wasn't dependent, wasn't at Vanessa's mercy. I was free. That night, I started reading through the rest of Richard's journals, the older ones from when Vanessa was young. Before the money and the status and the slow transformation into someone I barely recognized, there was one entry from her 10th birthday. Threw Vanessa a party today. Evelyn made the cake from scratch, 3 layers, vanilla with buttercream frosting. Must have taken her hours. Vanessa barely looked at it. Said she wanted a bakery cake like her friend Madison had. Evelyn's face fell, but she covered it quickly, always covering, always pretending it doesn't hurt. Asked Vanessa later why she couldn't just say thank you. She said, why should I thank her for something I didn't ask for? Don't know where she learned that, but it worries me. I remembered that birthday, remembered spending 2 days making that cake perfect, piping flowers on each layer. Remembered Vanessa's dismissive shrug when I brought it out, candles blazing. I told myself she was just at that age, that all 10-year-olds were a little selfish, a little thoughtless, but it hadn't stopped at 10 or 15 or 25. It had just gotten more sophisticated, more socially acceptable, wrapped in therapy language about boundaries and self-care and nuclear families. Another entry from when Vanessa was 16. Vanessa got into Harvard. Full scholarship. We're so proud. But when Evelyn hugged her, Vanessa pulled away and said, Mom, you're wrinkling my shirt. Evelyn laughed it off. I didn't. Told Vanessa she needed to show her mother more respect. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. Maybe I am. Maybe this is just how teenage girls are. But something feels off. Like she measures every interaction, weighing what she gets against what she has to give. And she's decided her mother isn't worth much effort. Page after page of observations. Small moments I'd forgotten or explained away. Richard had seen them all, catalogued them, worried over them, and he'd known exactly what would happen when he was gone. The journal from his last month was hardest to read. His handwriting had gotten shaky, letters trailing off as pain or medication made it hard to focus. Asked Vanessa to spend time with Evelyn after I'm gone, to make sure she's not alone. Vanessa said, Dad, don't be morbid, but it wasn't morbid, it was real. Tried to explain that her mother would need support, love, family. Vanessa said she'd handle it. That phrase keeps echoing, she'll handle it. Like Evelyn is a problem to be managed, not a person to be cherished. Told Henderson to make absolutely sure the Lighthouse property is protected. made him write it into the documents 3 different ways. If Vanessa challenges it, it'll hold up. It has to. That house is the only thing standing between Evelyn and complete dependence on our daughter's mercy. And I'm not sure Vanessa has any mercy left. Last conversation with Evelyn today. Told her I loved her, that she was the best thing that ever happened to me, that she deserved to be loved, cherished, protected. She cried and said I was talking like I was dying. I didn't have the heart to tell her I've been dying for months, that we're running out of time. Just held her hand and let her believe everything would be okay. It won't be okay, not for a while, but the lighthouse will be there. And maybe someday she'll stand on that cliff and look at the ocean and remember that someone loved her enough to plan for her future, even when he knew he wouldn't be there to share it. I closed the journal and pressed it against my chest, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. I remember, I said to the empty room, to Richard's ghost, to the memory of the man who'd known me better than I knew myself. I'm standing on the cliff, I'm looking at the ocean, and I remember you loved me. The house creaked around me, settling into the night. I was alone, but I wasn't abandoned. The next day I went to that coffee hour at the community center, walked in feeling stupid and old and out of place. A dozen women were scattered around a bright room that smelled like fresh paint and brewing coffee. Margie spotted me immediately and waved me over. "Mrs. Harper, you came." "Call me Evelyn," I said, "please." She introduced me around. Names I forgot immediately, faces that blurred together. But they were kind. They asked where I was from, what brought me to the coast, normal small talk questions. I gave them the easy answers. Recently widowed, moved into the lighthouse property, still settling in, nobody pushed for more. We talked about nothing important, gardening, the weather, a new restaurant opening downtown, light, meaningless conversation that somehow felt like the most important thing I'd done in months, because it was mine, my choice, my life. When I left an hour later, one of the women, Patricia maybe, or was it Patricia, stopped me at the door. "It gets easier," she said quietly. "Whatever you're running from, it gets easier." I opened my mouth to say I wasn't running from anything, but she smiled and patted my arm. I moved here 3 years ago after my daughter told me I was too negative, that I was bringing down her household energy. She laughed, but it was bitter. Took me a year to realize she was just ashamed of having a mother who wasn't Instagram worthy. Now I have my own place, my own life, and you know what? I'm happier than I've been in decades. "Does she talk to you?" I asked. "Your daughter?" "Occasionally, on her terms, when she needs something." Patricia shrugged. "But I stopped waiting for her to love me the way I loved her. That's the secret. You can't make someone choose you. You can only choose yourself." She walked away before I could respond. I drove home thinking about those words, turning them over like stones, looking for sharp edges. You can't make someone choose you. You can only choose yourself. For 5 years, I'd contorted myself trying to be valuable enough, useful enough, invisible enough to keep my place in Vanessa's life. I'd swallowed every dismissal, every casual cruelty, every reminder that I was there by permission, not by right. And it hadn't mattered. She'd thrown me out anyway, because it was never about what I did or didn't do. It was about what she wanted, what served her, what made her life easier. I was never going to be enough because she decided I wasn't worth the effort. That realization should have broken me. Instead, it set me free. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway, a black Mercedes I recognized immediately. Vanessa's car. My heart started racing, but I made myself park normally, get out calmly, walk to my front door like I belonged here, because I did belong here. Vanessa was sitting on my porch steps. She stood when she saw me, and I was struck by how tired she looked. Older. The perfect makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. "Mom," she said. "Vanessa." We stared at each other across the space that had once held 38 years of history, and now held only wreckage. "Can we talk?" she asked. "About what?" "About all of this, about the house, about us." I unlocked the door and gestured her inside. She walked in slowly, looking around at my small, shabby, perfect home with an expression I couldn't read. "You're really living here," she said. "I am. It's so small. It's enough." She turned to face me, and for a second, just a second, I saw something that might have been regret in her eyes. "Mom, I didn't come here to fight." "Then why did you come?" She sat down at my kitchen table without being invited. Force of habit, probably. Vanessa was used to taking up space wherever she went. "I need you to understand something," she said. "That property is worth $3 million. $3 million. Do you have any idea what that kind of money could do for Noah's future? His education, his opportunities." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. This isn't about Noah. It's about you wanting something you can't have." "That's not fair." "So, isn't it?" I sat down across from her. "Tell me, Vanessa, when was the last time you asked about my future, my opportunities, my needs beyond what I could do for you?" She flinched. "That's not... I've always cared about you." "Have you?" The question hung there, simple and devastating. "I took you in," she said finally. "After Dad died, when you had nothing, I gave you a home." "You gave me a room," I corrected, "in exchange for free childcare, housekeeping, cooking, and emotional labor." "That's not charity, Vanessa, that's exploitation." "I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe it took me this long to say it." Her face hardened. I watched the momentary vulnerability disappear behind the mask she wore so well. "Fine," she said. "You want to play victim? Go ahead. But that property should be mine. I'm his daughter, his only child. I should have gotten everything." "He gave you everything," I said quietly. "The house, the investments, the life insurance, everything except one small piece of security he set aside for me. And you can't stand it. You can't stand that there's one thing in this world I have that you don't." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You know what? Keep it. Keep your little house and your ocean view and your martyrdom. But don't expect me to feel sorry for you when you're here alone with no family, no purpose, nothing but your resentment." "I expect nothing from you," I said. "That's the difference between us. I've finally stopped expecting." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Stopped, turned back. "Noah asks about you," she said, "every day. He doesn't understand why you're gone." The words hit me like a fist in the chest. "Then tell him the truth," I managed. "Tell him his grandmother didn't leave. She was sent away. I'll tell him you chose this, that you chose a house over him. You'd lie to your own son. I'll tell him what he needs to hear to move on." She opened the door. "Goodbye, Mom. I hope your independence is worth it." She left. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the door for a long time. Then I got up, made myself dinner, and ate it watching the sunset. Because she was wrong. My independence was worth everything. The weeks after that confrontation with Vanessa should have felt like freedom. And they did, in a way. But freedom has a price nobody tells you about. It's lonely as hell. I'd wake up every morning in that beach house, and the first thought wasn't gratitude or relief. It was Noah. Where was he? What was he doing? Did he ask about me at breakfast? Did Vanessa tell him I didn't care anymore? The not knowing was worse than the rejection. I tried to build a routine. Mornings I'd walk the beach, afternoons at the library volunteering, evenings reading Richard's journals over and over like they held some secret answer I'd missed. But everything felt hollow, like I was going through motions, waiting for something to shift. 3 weeks after Vanessa's visit, I was at the grocery store when I saw him. Noah. He was with Derek, standing in the cereal aisle. 7 years old, wearing a jacket that was too big for him, holding a box of some sugary cereal Vanessa would never approve of. Derek was reading something on his phone, not really paying attention. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. I stood there frozen behind a display of canned soup, watching my grandson exist in the world without me. He looked thin, tired. His hair needed cutting, and there were dark circles under his eyes that hadn't been there before. I should have walked away, should have respected the boundary Vanessa had drawn, should have been the bigger person. But I couldn't. Not when he was right there. Not when every cell in my body was screaming to go to him. I stepped around the display, started walking toward them. got maybe 10 feet away when Noah looked up. Our eyes met. For a second, nothing. He just stared at me like he wasn't sure I was real, like maybe I was something he'd imagined. Then his face crumpled. Grandma? The word came out small and broken, and I was moving before I could think, closing the distance between us, dropping to my knees in the middle of the grocery store. Hi, baby. He slammed into me so hard we both almost fell over. His arms wrapped around my neck and he was crying, not loud, but these awful silent sobs that shook his whole body. You're here, he kept saying. You're here, you're here, you're here. I'm here. I held him tight, breathing in the smell of his shampoo, feeling how much bigger he'd gotten in just a few weeks. I'm right here. I thought you were gone forever. Mom said you moved away and you were busy and you didn't have time for me anymore, and I thought, stop. I pulled back to look at him, wiping tears off his face with my thumbs. That's not true. None of that is true. I've been here the whole time wishing I could see you. Then why didn't you come? Because your mom said I couldn't, Evelyn. Derek's voice cut through the moment like a knife. I looked up at him, still holding Noah, and saw fear written all over his face. Derek, you can't be here. You can't talk to him. He's my grandson, and Vanessa has made it very clear that you're not supposed to have contact. Vanessa doesn't own him. My voice came out louder than I intended. People were staring. I didn't care. She doesn't get to decide who loves him. She's his mother, and I'm his grandmother. I raised him while she was busy with her career. I was there for every nightmare, every scraped knee, every moment she was too important to show up for. And now she's erased me from his life like I never existed. Evelyn, please. Derek glanced around nervously. You're making a scene. I don't care about a scene. I care about him. I looked back at Noah, who was watching this exchange with huge, frightened eyes. Noah, sweetheart, I need you to listen to me. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I had to, but I never stopped thinking about you. Not for 1 second. Mom said you didn't want to see me anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. She lied. Evelyn, Derek tried to interrupt, but I talked over him. Your mom lied because she's angry at me. But that has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong. I love you exactly as much as I always have. Then why can't you come home? Because it's not my home anymore. Your mom made sure of that. Noah's face twisted. I hate her. I hate her so much. Noah, don't say that, Derek started. I do. She's mean and she yells all the time and nothing I do is good enough. And now she took Grandma away and I hate her. He was shouting now and people were definitely staring. An employee started walking toward us. Derek looked panicked. We need to go, he said, reaching for Noah. No. Noah pulled away from him, wrapped himself around me tighter. I want to stay with Grandma. I want to go to her house. You can't, buddy. Why not? Why can't I just live with Grandma? She actually wants me. Your mom wants you. No, she doesn't. She wants me to be perfect and I'm not perfect and I'm tired and I just want Grandma. He was completely breaking down now, crying so hard he was hiccuping. I held him and rocked him and hated Vanessa with a fury that burned. Sir, ma'am, the store employee had reached us. Young kid, couldn't have been more than 20, looking deeply uncomfortable. Is everything okay here? Fine, Derek said quickly. Family situation, we're leaving. I need to make sure the child is safe. He's safe with me, Derek snapped. I'm his father. The employee looked at me. And you are? His grandmother. Who isn't supposed to be here, Derek added, and I heard the warning in his voice. The threat. The employee's expression shifted. Sir, if there's a custody situation, there isn't. My wife and I are together. This is my mother-in-law. There's just been some family disagreement and we're handling it, but we need to go. He tried to pull Noah away again. Noah screamed, I hate you, and I hate Mom, and I want Grandma. Noah, stop it. Let him go. My voice came out cold and hard. You're scaring him. I'm scaring him? You're the one who ambushed us in a grocery store. I didn't ambush anyone. I was shopping and saw my grandson and you expect me to just ignore him? Yes, that's exactly what I expect. Derek's face was red now, veins standing out on his forehead. Vanessa was very clear, no contact. And if she finds out about this, what will she do? Take him away from me more than she already has? Make him believe I don't love him? Oh wait, she's already doing that. You're making this worse. I'm not the one who made this situation. I'm not the one who kicked me out and cut me off and poisoned my relationship with my grandson. And I'm not the one who's violating the boundaries we set. Your boundaries are cruel and unnecessary and designed to punish me for daring to stand up for myself. We were both yelling now. Noah was still crying, pressed against me, trembling. The store employee had called for a manager. Other shoppers had their phones out, probably recording this disaster. This was bad. I knew it was bad, but I couldn't make myself let go of Noah. Evelyn, Derek's voice dropped, became almost pleading. Please don't make me be the bad guy here. Let him go. Let us leave before this gets even worse. It's already worse, I said. Look at him. He's falling apart, and you're both so concerned with your stupid boundaries and your control that you can't see you're destroying him. We're trying to maintain stability by ripping away everyone who actually loves him. That's not stability, that's isolation. You don't get to make these decisions anymore. No, apparently only Vanessa does, and she's doing a fantastic job, isn't she? Look how happy he is. Derek's jaw clenched. Let him go. Or what? Or I call the police and report that you're refusing to release my son. The threat hung there between us, ugly and real. I looked down at Noah. His face was blotchy and wet, eyes red, breath coming in gasps. He looked at me like I was the only solid thing in his world, like if I let go, he'd drift away and disappear. But if I didn't let go, Derek would call the police, and that would give Vanessa exactly the ammunition she needed to paint me as unstable, dangerous, someone who needed to be kept away. Noah, I said softly, I need you to go with your dad now. No. Listen to me, I need you to be brave. Can you be brave for me? He shook his head frantically. Don't make me go. Please don't make me go. I'm not making you go, but your dad needs you to go with him, and I need you to remember something. What? I love you. No matter what anyone tells you, no matter how long it is before we see each other again. I love you, and that will never, ever change. Do you understand? But I want to stay with you. I know, and someday you will, but not today. I kissed his forehead. Be brave, be strong, and remember what I said. I loosened my arms. Noah clung harder. Grandma, please. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Derek finally managed to pull him away. Noah was screaming now, reaching for me, and it took everything I had not to grab him back. I hate you, Noah was shouting at Derek. I hate you. I hate Mom. I hate everyone. Derek picked him up. He was almost too big to carry, but Derek managed and started walking toward the exit. Noah was fighting him, kicking and crying and calling for me. I stood there in the middle of the grocery store with tears streaming down my face and watched them leave. The manager appeared beside me. Ma'am, are you all right? No, I said, I'm really not. I abandoned my cart and walked out, sat in my car and cried until I couldn't breathe, until my chest hurt and my throat was raw. My phone rang an hour later. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mrs. Harper, this is Sarah Chen from Child Protective Services. I received a call about an incident at a grocery store this afternoon involving you and a minor child named Noah Morrison. My blood ran cold. Who called you? The child's mother. She's filed a report claiming you're attempting to interfere with her custody and that you're potentially a danger to her son. That's not true. I need to ask you some questions. Can you tell me what happened today? I told her everything. The whole story from the beginning, from being kicked out to the property, to the confrontation with Vanessa, to seeing Noah in the store. Miss Chen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Harper, I'm going to be honest with you. This doesn't sound like a CPS matter. This sounds like a family dispute that's escalated. So you're not going to investigate? I'm going to document the call and close the case. There's no evidence of abuse or neglect, just a complicated family situation. She paused. But Mrs. Harper, I need you to be very careful. If Ms. Morrison files for a restraining order, you need to respect it, even if you disagree with it. Do you understand? A restraining order? She can't. She can. And if today's incident is presented as evidence of harassment, she might be successful. So please, stay away from the family until this is legally resolved. After she hung up, I sat in my car outside the grocery store until the sun went down and the parking lot emptied. A restraining order. Vanessa was going to try to get a restraining order, which would make it illegal for me to see Noah, to contact him, to exist anywhere near him. I drove home and called the only person I could think of who might help. Mr. Henderson answered on the second ring. Mrs. Harper, I need a lawyer, a family lawyer, someone who handles custody cases. What happened? I told him about the grocery store, about Derek's threat, about the CPS call, and the potential restraining order. He was quiet for a long moment, then, this is complicated. You have no legal standing as a grandparent unless you can prove the parents are unfit or that denying you access causes harm to the child. He's falling apart. Did you not hear me? He's having nightmares. His grades are dropping. He's anxious and depressed. But is he being abused? Neglected? Is there documentation? No, but then legally the parents have every right to decide who has access to him, even if that decision seems cruel. So I'm just supposed to give up, let them erase me. I'm saying you need to be strategic. Fighting them openly gives them ammunition. But if you can document the harm being caused to Noah, build a case that your involvement is in his best interest, you might have a chance at getting grandparent visitation rights. How long would that take? Months, maybe a year, and it's expensive. I have the house. I can sell it. Don't. His voice was sharp. That house is your security, your independence. Don't give it up for a legal battle you might not win. Then what am I supposed to do? Wait, document everything, and hope that Derek or Vanessa makes a mistake that gives you an opening. That's not good enough. It's all I've got, Mrs. Harper. I'm sorry. I hung up and screamed into a pillow until my voice gave out. The next day, a process server showed up at my door. Temporary restraining order. I was to stay at least 500 feet away from Vanessa, Derek, and Noah at all times, pending a hearing in 2 weeks. I read the paperwork with shaking hands. Vanessa had submitted photos from the grocery store incident. Someone had filmed it and sent it to her, had written a statement claiming I was unstable and potentially dangerous and that my erratic behavior was traumatizing Noah. She twisted everything, made me look like a crazy old woman who couldn't accept boundaries, and the worst part, without context, without the full story, I could see how someone might believe her. I called Derek. He didn't answer. I called again and again. Finally, on the 5th try, he picked up. Evelyn, you need to stop calling. Did you know she was going to file a restraining order? She told me after she did it. And you're okay with this? You're okay with making it illegal for me to see my grandson? I'm trying to keep my marriage together. Your marriage? I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to me. Your marriage is already over, Derek. You just haven't admitted it yet. That's not true. She filed a restraining order against your son's grandmother. She's using the legal system to punish me for not giving her what she wants. And you're standing by her? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. She's cruel and controlling, and you're enabling her. I'm protecting my family. I'm family. Noah is family. Or have you forgotten that while you've been busy keeping Vanessa happy? Evelyn, I can't do this right now. When can you do it? When Noah is 18 and realizes you let his mother erase his grandmother from his life. When he understands you chose keeping the peace over his happiness. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but you're choosing to participate in it anyway. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you want me to do? Tell the truth at the hearing. Tell them that Noah was devastated when I left, that he's been struggling, that he ran to me in that store because he missed me, not because I ambushed him. Vanessa will never forgive me. Since when do you need her permission to tell the truth? You don't understand what she's like when she's angry. I understand perfectly. I've been on the receiving end of her anger my entire life. But you're his father. He needs you to be stronger than your fear of her. I can't. Those 2 words were the saddest thing I'd ever heard. Not I won't, but I can't. Derek was trapped just like I had been, just like Noah still was. Then you're a coward, I said, and someday Noah will realize that too. I hung up before he could respond. The hearing was a nightmare. Vanessa showed up with a lawyer who cost more than most people make in a year. I showed up with a court-appointed advocate who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. The judge was a woman in her 60s, expression carved from stone. Vanessa's lawyer went first, painted me as unstable, obsessed, unable to accept reasonable boundaries, showed the grocery store footage, edited carefully to make me look aggressive and Derek look protective, submitted character witnesses who all said Vanessa was a devoted mother and I was difficult. Then it was my turn. My advocate did her best, explained the background, the property dispute, the sudden eviction, the cutting off of contact with Noah, submitted Richard's journals as evidence that he'd been concerned about exactly this scenario, but she couldn't submit evidence of Noah's mental state, couldn't prove that being separated from me was hurting him, couldn't show the text messages where he'd begged his father to let him see me because I didn't have access to those messages. All we had was my word against Vanessa's carefully constructed narrative. The judge took 10 minutes to decide. Temporary restraining order granted, extended for 6 months. I was to have no contact with Noah, Derek, or Vanessa. If I violated the order, I could be arrested. I sat in that courtroom and felt everything collapse. 6 months. Half a year of Noah thinking I'd abandoned him. Half a year of Vanessa poisoning him against me. Half a year of being erased. By the time I was allowed to see him again, if I ever was, would he even remember who I was? I walked out of the courthouse into blinding sunshine and wanted to scream. Instead, I went home and sat on the porch and stared at the ocean until the sun went down. Richard the cat climbed into my lap and purred, like that could fix anything. What do? I asked him. How do I fight this? He didn't answer, just purred louder and kneaded my leg with his claws. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I prayed. Not to anyone specific, just out into the universe, because I needed to believe someone was listening. If you're there, I said to the darkness, if you have any power at all, please protect him. Please don't let them break him the way they broke me. The ocean crashed against the cliffs. The wind howled through the eaves, and I got no answer except the silence I'd been living in for months. 3 weeks later, I was at the library returning books when my phone rang. Derek. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What? She's destroying him. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. Vanessa, she's destroying Noah and I don't know how to stop it. My heart started racing. What do you mean? He's not eating, barely sleeping. The school called again. He got in a fight with another kid, gave him a black eye. They're threatening suspension. What did Vanessa do? Yelled at him for 2 hours about how he's embarrassing the family. Took away his toys. Said if he can't behave like a civilized person, he'll be treated like an animal. She said that to a 7-year-old. She said worse. Derek's voice cracked. He asked about you yesterday, asked if you were ever coming back, and she told him you were dead. The world tilted. She what? She told him you died, that you were sick and you died, and we didn't tell him because we didn't want to upset him. And then she said if he kept asking about you, she'd know he wasn't emotionally mature enough to handle adult information. That's psychological abuse. I know. He was crying now. I know, and I'm standing here watching it happen, and I don't know what to do because if I stand up to her, she'll divorce me and take Noah, and I'll lose him. You're losing him anyway, I said, just slower. Help me. Derek's voice was desperate. Please, Evelyn, Help me figure out how to protect him. I can't. There's a restraining order. I'll testify. I'll tell the judge everything. How bad it's gotten. How much Noah needs you. I'll do whatever it takes. I was quiet for a long moment, not trusting this. Not trusting him. Why now? I asked. What changed? He tried to run away. Last night we found him 3 blocks away, walking toward the highway. He said he was going to find you, that if we wouldn't take him to you, he'd walk there himself. Tears were streaming down my face. He said he'd rather be dead than stay with us. Derek's voice broke completely, and I realized that if I don't do something, I'm going to lose him, either literally or because he'll grow up and never forgive me for letting this happen. What do you want me to do? I'm going to file for divorce, and I'm going to fight for full custody. And I need you to back me up, to testify about what Vanessa did to you, how she treated you, the pattern of behavior. She'll destroy you. She's already destroying the only thing that matters. He took a shaky breath. Will you help me? I looked out at the ocean, thinking about Noah, sweet, sensitive Noah, who used to bring me dandelions, who was now telling his father he'd rather be dead than live in his own home. Yes, I said, I'll help you. And somewhere in the darkness I felt Richard smiling. 4 months passed before I saw Derek again. 4 months of building a life that was entirely my own. I joined that coffee group, started volunteering at the community library twice a week, even adopted a cat from the local shelter, a scrawny orange thing with one chewed ear who'd been there so long they were about to put him down. I named him Richard. It felt right. I wasn't happy exactly. Happiness felt too big, too presumptuous for what I was living. But I was okay. And okay was something I hadn't been in years. It was a Saturday morning in early November when I heard the knock. I was in my garden, pulling weeds from around the rosemary, Richard the cat supervising from the porch. The marine layer hadn't burned off yet, and everything was grey and damp. I wasn't expecting anyone. The few friends I'd made knew to call first. When I opened the door, Derek was standing there alone. No Vanessa, no lawyers. Just him, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down that looked like he'd slept in it. He looked terrible. There were lines around his eyes I didn't remember, and his jaw was covered in stubble that was more grey than brown. Evelyn, he said, can I come in? Every instinct told me to say no, to close the door on whatever fresh hell Vanessa had sent him to deliver. But something in his face stopped me. He looked broken in a way that had nothing to do with the property or the money. Fine, I said. But if you're here to talk about the house, I'm not. He stepped inside, looked around at my small living room with its mismatched furniture and cat hair on everything. I'm here about Noah. My heart seized. Is he okay? Did something happen? He's fine, physically. Derek sat down heavily on my couch. But he's not okay, and I don't know what to do anymore. I sat across from him, gripping the arms of my chair. What do you mean? He's been acting out at school, talking back to teachers, starting fights with other kids. His grades have dropped. The counselor called us in last week and said he's showing signs of anxiety and depression. Derek rubbed his face. He's 7 years old, Evelyn. 7. And he's depressed. Did you tell them why? I asked quietly. We told them about Richard passing away, about the family adjustments. They suggested therapy. He laughed, but it was hollow. Vanessa found him the most expensive child psychologist in the city. 2 sessions in, the therapist asked to speak with us privately. He paused, staring at his hands. She said, Noah talks about you constantly, about his grandmother who disappeared, about how he doesn't understand what he did wrong to make you leave, about how his mom gets angry every time he mentions your name. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I pushed them down. Derek. She told Vanessa that cutting you out of Noah's life was causing him real psychological harm, that children need stability and continuity with their attachment figures, that removing you so abruptly with no explanation was essentially emotional trauma. What did Vanessa say? She fired the therapist. Derek looked up at me and his eyes were red. Said the woman didn't understand our family dynamic. Found someone else who told us what we wanted to hear, that Noah just needs time to adjust, that he's resilient, that kids forget. But he's not forgetting. No, he's not. Derek leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Last week I found him in his closet at 2 a.m, crying. I asked him what was wrong, and he said he was scared he'd forget what you looked like, that he was trying to remember your voice, but it was getting fuzzy. A sob escaped before I could stop it. He asked me why you didn't love him anymore. Derek continued, his voice breaking. He said he promised to be good, to clean his room, to do his homework without complaining, if only you'd come back. And I had to lie to him, Evelyn. I had to tell him you were busy, that you were dealing with your own things, that it wasn't about him. You shouldn't have lied. What was I supposed to say? That his mother threw you out, that she decided you weren't valuable enough to keep around, that she's so concerned with control and appearances that she'd rather damage her own son than admit she was wrong? The bitterness in his voice shocked me. This was Derek, who'd sat silently in that conference room while Vanessa dismantled my life. Derek, who'd called me a financial burden without blinking. Why are you really here? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I'm leaving her. The words hung in the air like smoke. You're what? Leaving her. Divorcing her. I can't do this anymore. He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in Derek's face before. Conviction. I've spent the past 4 months watching my wife treat our son like a business asset. Everything is about optimization, performance, return on investment. He's 7 and she has him scheduled down to the minute. Soccer, tutoring, Mandarin lessons, chess club, swimming. He doesn't have friends. He has networking opportunities. He doesn't have playtime. He has skill-building activities. Derek, wow. And when he cries about missing you, she tells him he's being dramatic. When he acts out at school, she punishes him by adding more activities, more structure. She thinks if she just controls every variable, he'll become this perfect specimen she can show off at parties. His voice dropped. I didn't see it before, or maybe I did, and I just ignored it because it was easier. Because she was successful and beautiful, and everyone thought we were the perfect family. But we're not. We're broken. And I broke our son by letting it happen. So you're here because you feel guilty. I'm here because I need your help. He looked at me directly. I'm filing for divorce next week, and I'm asking for primary custody. My breath caught. Vanessa will destroy you. Probably. She's already got the best lawyers in the state on retainer. But I don't care. I can't leave Noah with her, Evelyn. I can't watch her turn him into another version of herself. Cold, calculating, measuring every relationship by what he gets out of it. What do you want from me? I want you to be part of his life again. Derek's voice was steady now. Determined. When I get custody, if I get custody, I want Noah to have his grandmother back. I want him to have someone who loves him without conditions, without expectations. Someone who makes him chocolate chip pancakes just because it's Tuesday. I remembered those pancakes. Saturday mornings, Noah's face covered in syrup, laughing at something silly. Before Vanessa decided processed sugar was damaging his development and banned it from the house. You realize what you're asking, I said slowly. Vanessa won't just let this go. She'll fight you on everything, and she'll use me as ammunition. Say you're unfit because you're allowing her unstable mother to influence Noah. Let her try. Derek stood up, started pacing my small living room. I've got documentation. Emails from teachers about Noah's behavior changes. The first therapist's notes before Vanessa shut her down. Text messages where Vanessa refers to Noah as the project and discusses him like a business plan. I've been collecting evidence for 2 months. 2 months? Why did you wait so long? He stopped pacing, looked at me with something like shame. Because I'm a coward, because I kept hoping it would get better. That Vanessa would see what she was doing and change. That I could fix our family without blowing it up. He laughed bitterly. But then last week Noah asked me if I thought you were dead. He said that was the only reason that made sense for why you'd never visit, never call, that you must have died like Grandpa Richard and nobody wanted to tell him. Tears were streaming down my face now. I didn't bother wiping them away. I told him you weren't dead, Derek continued. And he looked at me with these big confused eyes and said, then why doesn't she want to see me? And I couldn't lie anymore, Evelyn. I couldn't keep protecting Vanessa at the expense of our son. So you're doing this for Noah? I'm doing this because I finally woke up and realized I'd married someone who's fundamentally incapable of putting anyone before herself, even her own child. He sat back down, looked at me earnestly. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I was complicit in what happened, but I'm asking you to forgive Noah, to give him another chance, to be his grandmother again. I never stopped being his grandmother. I know, but he doesn't. He thinks you abandoned him, and I need to fix that. I need him to know that you didn't leave by choice, that you were pushed out, that you love him. I wiped my eyes, trying to think clearly through the emotions churning in my chest. When are you telling Vanessa? Monday. I've already moved most of my important documents out of the house, got a lawyer, rented an apartment in the city. He paused. I was hoping maybe Noah could spend next weekend here, with you, if that's okay. I'll tell him this week, explain what's happening, and then give him some space away from the house while Vanessa and I work out the initial details. You want to use me as a babysitter while you handle your divorce. The words came out harsher than I intended, but Derek didn't flinch. No, I want to give my son back, the person he loves most in this world, the person whose absence is tearing him apart. He leaned forward. Evelyn, I'm not asking you to do me a favor. I'm trying to correct a massive mistake. I'm trying to give Noah what he needs, what he's needed all along. I stood up, walked to the window. The fog was finally lifting, revealing the ocean below, grey water stretching to the horizon. If I say yes, I said slowly, Vanessa will use it against you. She'll say you're alienating Noah from her, turning him against his mother. She already is. I'm just giving him somewhere safe to land when the whole thing explodes. She'll come after me too, try to paint me as manipulative, vindictive. Let her. Derek's voice was firm. I've got evidence that you've stayed away, that you respected her boundaries even when it hurt, that you didn't try to interfere or undermine her. You're not the villain here, Evelyn. She is. I turned to face him. You didn't believe that 4 months ago. No, Em, he admitted. 4 months ago, I was still telling myself that Vanessa was right, that boundaries were healthy, that you were too involved, that we needed space as a nuclear family. He said those last 2 words with disgust. 4 months ago, I was still letting her narrative control how I saw everything, but then I watched my son deteriorate, watched him transform from a happy kid into someone who barely smiles, who flinches when Vanessa walks in the room, who started having nightmares about being abandoned. What kind of nightmares? He dreams that everyone he loves disappears, that he wakes up and he's alone in the house, that he calls for us but no one answers. Derek's voice cracked. Last Tuesday he wet the bed for the first time in 4 years. Vanessa screamed at him, called him a baby, made him sleep in the wet sheets because natural consequences teach better than sympathy. She what? I changed the sheets after she went to sleep, but the damage was done. Noah apologized to me for 15 minutes straight, said he was sorry for being bad, for not being good enough. Rage flooded through me, hot and vicious. That's abuse. I know, and I documented it, took pictures of the text she sent me that night, bragging about her tough love parenting. Recorded her telling our 7-year-old that he was weak and disappointing. Derek looked me straight in the eye. I'm getting him out, Evelyn, and I'm hoping you'll help me give him something to hold on to while his world falls apart. I should have hesitated, should have thought about the complications, the legal implications, the fact that Derek was asking me to step back into a situation that had nearly destroyed me 4 months ago. But all I could think about was Noah, sweet, sensitive Noah, who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers, who'd curl up next to me for bedtime stories and fall asleep with his head on my shoulder, who'd told me once, in that serious way children have, that I was his favorite person in the whole world. Okay, I said, he can come next weekend, but Derek, I need you to understand something. What? I'm not doing this for you, or even to spite Vanessa. I'm doing this because that little boy deserves at least one adult in his life who loves him without an agenda. And if you ever use him as a pawn in your divorce games, if you ever put your convenience above his well-being, I will make sure you regret it. Do you understand? Yes. And I'm not going to lie to him. If he asks why I've been gone, I'm telling him the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth. Derek nodded. I wouldn't expect anything else. Good. I crossed my arms. Now get out. I need to prepare for this, and I can't do that with you here. He stood, moved toward the door, then stopped. Evelyn, thank you. Really. Don't thank me yet. You haven't told Vanessa. Monday morning. He gave me a grim smile. I'm guessing by Monday afternoon you'll be getting some very angry phone calls. I'll handle it. After he left, I sat on my porch with Richard the cat purring in my lap and tried to process what had just happened. Noah was coming here, to my house, my sanctuary. The thought filled me with equal parts joy and terror. What if he'd changed too much? What if 4 months was too long and he'd internalized Vanessa's narrative that I'd abandoned him? What if seeing me just made everything worse? What if I couldn't fix what they'd broken? Richard the cat head-butted my hand, demanding attention. I scratched behind his chewed ear and tried to breathe. Your namesake would know what to do, I told the cat. He always knew. But Richard was gone, and I had to figure this out on my own. That weekend, I cleaned the second bedroom top to bottom. It had been serving as storage. Boxes of books I hadn't unpacked. Richard's old clothes I couldn't bring myself to donate. Random furniture I'd accumulated. I cleared it all out, painted the walls a soft blue, found a twin bed at a thrift store and bought new sheets covered in planets and stars because Noah had been obsessed with space last time I saw him. Hung curtains, put a small bookshelf by the bed and filled it with books from the library, adventure stories, graphic novels, silly picture books for when he needed comfort, made it into a room that said, "You are welcome here. You are safe here. This is yours." Patricia from the coffee group came by on Saturday to help me hang a solar system, mobile, above the bed. "Special visitor?" she asked, steadying the ladder. "My grandson. I haven't seen him in 4 months. The daughter's husband, actually. He's leaving her, wants Noah to have somewhere stable." Patricia was quiet for a moment, adjusting the mobile so Saturn hung just right. "That's brave," she said finally, "for you and for him. Or stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing." She climbed down, surveyed our work. "That's a lucky kid, having someone fight for him like this." "I'm not fighting, I'm just opening my door." "Same thing," Patricia said. Monday afternoon my phone rang. I'd been expecting it, but my stomach still dropped when I saw Vanessa's name. I almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail like I had all her other calls over the past 4 months. But this was different now. This involved Noah. I answered. "You manipulative bitch." Her voice was poison, sharp and lethal. "Hello, Vanessa. Don't you dare play innocent with me." Derek filed for divorce this morning, and you know what his grounds are: emotional abuse. He's claiming I'm emotionally abusing our son, Mom, my child. I know. You know? You know? She was screaming now. "Did you put him up to this? Is this your revenge? Destroying my marriage because you're bitter about the house?" "I didn't destroy anything, Vanessa. You did that yourself." "He wants primary custody. He's trying to take Noah away from me. Maybe because you've been treating Noah like a business project instead of a child. How dare you, No." My voice came out harder than I'd ever spoken to her before. "How dare you? How dare you treat that little boy like his worth is measured by his achievements? How dare you punish him for missing the grandmother you ripped away from him? How dare you call his trauma dramatic and his pain weak? Derek told you that. He had no right. He had every right. He's Noah's father, and unlike you, he actually cares about Noah's emotional well-being more than his performance statistics. I am an excellent mother. "You're a tyrant," I said, and the word felt like lightning leaving my mouth. "You've always been a tyrant, Vanessa. Even as a child, you measured people by what they could do for you. I told myself it was a phase, that you'd grow out of it, that having a child of your own would teach you empathy. But it didn't. It just gave you a new project to control. You don't know what you're talking about." I read your father's journals, all of them. He saw it too, saw what you were becoming. He was terrified of what would happen to me after he died, because he knew you'd discard me the second I wasn't useful, and he was right. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "Dad left you that house because he was bitter and senile. He left me that house because he loved me. Something you've never understood, real love, unconditional love, love that doesn't require performance or perfection or utility. If you think Derek is going to win custody, you're delusional. I have resources, lawyers, evidence that he's unstable. He's not unstable. He's finally awake. And every email you've sent, every text message, every documented incident of you treating Noah like damaged inventory instead of a traumatized child is evidence against you. This is your fault." Vanessa hissed. "All of it. If you just accepted your place, if you'd stayed quiet and grateful like you should have, none of this would be happening." "You're right," I said. "If I'd stayed quiet and grateful and invisible, you'd still have free childcare and Derek would still be too scared to stand up to you. But I didn't stay quiet. And now everything you built on cruelty and control is falling apart." "I will bury you," she said, and her voice was ice. "I will bury both of you. You think you can take my son from me? You think you can poison my husband against me? I will destroy everything you love. That house, your reputation, whatever pathetic little life you've built up there. When I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never signed those papers." "Threaten me all you want," I said calmly. "It won't change anything. Noah needs people who love him more than they love winning, and you've proven you're not one of those people. Stay away from my son. He's coming here this weekend. Derek's bringing him. And unless a judge says otherwise, I'm going to be his grandmother again, the way I should have been allowed to be all along, over my dead body, if that's what it takes." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put the phone down and grip the edge of the counter. But underneath the fear, underneath the adrenaline, there was something else. Power. For the first time in my entire relationship with my daughter, I had said exactly what I thought. No softening, no apologizing, no backing down. And the sky hadn't fallen. That night Derek called. "She knows," he said. "I'm guessing you heard from her. She threatened to destroy me. She threatened to destroy both of us, and her lawyer called mine within an hour. They're demanding I cancel this weekend with you, claiming you're a hostile influence." My heart sank. "So Noah can't come?" I didn't say that. Derek's voice was firm. "My lawyer said unless Vanessa gets an emergency custody order, I have every right to bring Noah wherever I want during my parenting time. And she won't get an emergency order. She has no grounds. I'm not a danger to Noah. You're not a danger to Noah, and a judge isn't going to intervene just because Vanessa's angry about the divorce." "Are you sure?" "Positive. We'll be there Friday evening, around 6? "Okay." I took a breath. "Derek, what do I tell him about where I've been?" "The truth, simple truth, that his mom and I thought it would be better if you lived somewhere else, but that was wrong, that you missed him every day, that you love him." "What if he's angry at me?" "Then let him be angry. Let him feel whatever he needs to feel. Just be there for him. That's all he needs." After we hung up, I walked out to the porch and stared at the ocean until the sun disappeared and stars came out. Friday couldn't come fast enough, and I was terrified of what would happen when it did. Friday felt like it lasted 3 days. I woke up at 5 in the morning and couldn't go back to sleep. Checked Noah's room 4 times to make sure everything was perfect. Made cookies from scratch, chocolate chip, his favorite. Then worried they'd seem like I was trying too hard and threw half of them away. Put them back out. Moved them again. Richard the cat watched me pace with what I swear was judgment in his one good eye. "I know," I told him, "I'm a mess." By 5:30, I was standing at the window watching the driveway like headlights might materialize through sheer force of will. My stomach was twisted in knots so tight I felt nauseous. What if Noah didn't remember me the way I remembered him? What if 4 months had been too long and I'd become a stranger? What if he blamed me for leaving? 6 o'clock came and went, then 6:15, 6:30. At 6:45, headlights finally swept across the driveway. I watched Derek's car pull up and park, watched him get out, then open the back door. And then I saw Noah. He'd grown. Not a lot, but enough that I noticed. His hair was longer, falling into his eyes. He was wearing a jacket I didn't recognize and carrying a small backpack covered in dinosaur patches. He looked so small, so uncertain. Derek said something to him and pointed at my door. Noah looked up at the house, and even from a distance I could see the hesitation on his face. I opened the door before I could lose my nerve. Noah? His head snapped toward me. For a moment we just stared at each other across the space that used to be nothing, and now felt like an ocean. Then he dropped his backpack and ran. I barely made it down the porch steps before he hit me, arms wrapping around my waist so tight I could hardly breathe. He was crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, quiet, hitching breaths that shook his whole body. "Grandma," he said into my sweater. "Grandma, I thought you were dead. I thought you died and nobody told me." Oh, baby. I sank down onto the steps, pulling him into my lap, even though he was really too big for it. No, I'm here. I'm right here. But you left." He pulled back to look at me, and his face was blotchy with tears. "You left and you didn't say goodbye, and you didn't call, and I didn't know where you were, and Mom said you were busy, but I thought that meant you didn't want me anymore." "Stop." I cupped his face in my hands, wiping tears with my thumbs. "Listen to me. I did not leave because I didn't want you. I left because I had to, because your mom asked me to, but not a single day went by that I didn't think about you, not one." "Then why didn't you come back?" "Because your mom said I couldn't, that it was better for everyone if I stayed away." His eyes went wide. "Mom said that?" I glanced at Derek, who was standing by his car looking stricken. He nodded slightly. "Permission to continue?" "Yes. Your mom and I had a disagreement, and she thought it would be better if I lived somewhere else. I didn't agree, but I didn't have a choice." "But that's not fair." Noah's voice went up, anger cutting through the tears. "You're my grandma. You're supposed to be there. You promised you'd always be there." "I know." "You promised," he was shouting now, pushing away from me. "You said you'd never leave me like Grandpa did, and then you did. And I was all alone, and nobody would tell me why, and I thought I did something wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong. Then why did you leave?" He was crying again, angry and hurt and 7 years old. "If I didn't do anything wrong, why didn't you want to stay?" "Because sometimes adults make bad decisions that hurt children, even when the children don't deserve it." I reached for him, but he pulled back. "Noah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry nobody explained. I'm sorry you thought I didn't love you, because that was never, ever true." "Then prove it," he said, and his voice was cold in a way that reminded me horribly of Vanessa. "Prove you love me." "How?" "Don't leave again. Promise you won't leave." I looked at Derek. He was crying now too, standing by his car with his hand over his mouth. "I can't promise that nothing will ever separate us again," I said carefully, "because I don't control everything, but I can promise that I will never choose to leave you, that if I'm gone, it's because someone made me go, not because I wanted to. That's a stupid promise. Maybe, but it's the only honest one I can give you." He stared at me for a long moment, then quietly, "Can I live here?" "What? Can I live here with you?" He looked around at the house, the garden, the ocean beyond. "Dad said he's getting his own apartment and I can stay with him, but I want to stay here with you, like before." "Noah, it's complicated." "I don't care if it's complicated," he was shouting again. "I don't want to live with Mom anymore. She's mean. She yells at me all the time. Nothing I do is good enough, and she says I'm weak and disappointing, and I hate it there. I hate it." Derek was moving toward us now, but I held up a hand to stop him. "Does your mom know you feel this way?" I asked gently. "I can't tell her. She'll just say I'm being dramatic. That's what she always says." He wiped his nose on his sleeve. But I'm not dramatic. I'm just sad and scared, and I miss you. I miss you too, sweetheart. So can I stay? I pulled him close again, and this time he let me. We'll figure it out, okay? Your dad and I and the lawyers, we'll figure out what's best for you. What's best for me is being here, he said into my shoulder. With you. Derek finally reached us. He crouched down, put a hand on Noah's back. Hey, buddy, why don't you go inside with Grandma? I need to grab your bag from the car. Noah nodded but didn't let go of me. We stood up together, awkward and attached, and made our way into the house. Richard the cat was sitting in the doorway, tail swishing. You got a cat. Noah's tears stopped immediately. What's his name? Richard, after your grandpa. Can I pet him? If he lets you. Noah approached the cat carefully, hand extended. Richard sniffed his fingers, considered, then head-butted his palm. Noah laughed, actually laughed, and just like that, some of the tension broke. He likes me. He's an excellent judge of character. Derek brought in Noah's bag and a few grocery sacks. I brought some of his things, clothes, toothbrush, his stuffed elephant, and some food he likes, the cheese crackers, applesauce pouches. I wasn't sure what you had here. Thank you, I took the bags. How long can he stay? I have him for the whole week, Thanksgiving break. He glanced at Noah, who was now lying on the floor, letting Richard climb on him. My lawyer said it's good for the custody case if I can show consistent care during my parenting time, and that involving you demonstrates family support. Using your son as evidence. Using my son's happiness as evidence, Derek corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He met my eyes. I know you don't trust me, Evelyn. I don't blame you, but I'm trying to do the right thing. Finally. Even if it's too late. It's not too late for Noah. No, he agreed. Not yet. Derek stayed for another hour, helping Noah settle in, explaining the schedule for the week. He'd pick Noah up next Friday. There was a hearing scheduled for December 3rd about temporary custody arrangements. What if the judge says I have to go back to Mom? Noah asked, his voice small. Then you'll go back to Mom, Derek said honestly, but only part-time, and Dad will be there too in my new place. You'll have 2 homes. I want one home, here. I know, Bud, we're working on it. After Derek left, Noah and I stood in the kitchen looking at each other awkwardly. 4 months was a long time in a 7-year-old's life. We'd lost our rhythm. Are you hungry? I asked. A little. I made cookies, chocolate chip. His eyes lit up. Really? Mom doesn't let me have cookies anymore. Too much sugar. Well, I'm not your mom. I pulled out the plate. And sometimes you need a cookie. We ate cookies at the kitchen table while the sun set over the ocean. Noah told me about school. He was reading chapter books now, and his teacher said he was gifted, but that didn't mean anything because everyone in his class was supposedly gifted. He told me about soccer, which he hated but had to do anyway, about Mandarin lessons with a tutor who smelled like cigarettes, about chess club where nobody talked to him because he wasn't good enough yet. Sounds like a lot, I said. It's too much, but if I complain, Mom says I'm not living up to my potential. He picked at his cookie. What does that even mean, potential? It means the possibility of what you could become. But Noah, you're 7. Your potential right now should be playing and laughing and being a kid. Mom says childhood is preparation for success. Your mom is wrong. His head snapped up. You can't say that. Why not? It's true. Childhood isn't preparation for anything. It's valuable on its own. You're allowed to just be Noah. Not future Noah, not potential Noah, just the kid sitting in front of me right now. He was quiet for a moment. Then, can I ask you something? Anything. Why doesn't Mom like me? The question hit me like a physical blow. Oh, Noah, she loves you. No. He shook his head firmly. She doesn't, I can tell. She likes what I do sometimes. When I get good grades or win at soccer or do something impressive. But she doesn't like me. The real me. I didn't know what to say, because he was right, and lying to him would be cruel. Your mom has a hard time showing love, I said finally. She measures everything by achievement and success and accomplishment, and that's a terrible way to love someone because people aren't projects. They're just people. Is that why she doesn't like you either? Yes, because I'm not useful to her anymore, and your mom only values people who can give her something. That's sad. It is sad for her most of all. Noah finished his cookie, then looked at me seriously. Grandma, can I stay here forever? I don't know if forever is possible, sweetheart, but for right now, you can stay here, and we'll take it one day at a time. One day at a time, he repeated. Okay. That night I read him 3 chapters of a book about dragons, his choice, and tucked him into the bed with the planet sheets. He held his stuffed elephant against his chest, and in the dim light from the hallway, he looked so young. Grandma? Yes? I'm glad you're not dead. I laughed despite myself. Me too, baby, me too. And Grandma, I'm sorry I said you made a stupid promise. You're forgiven. I love you. I love you too, so much. I left his door cracked open and went to my own room, lay in bed listening to the ocean and the sound of Noah breathing in the next room. For the first time in 4 months, the house didn't feel empty. The week passed in a blur of ordinary magic. We made breakfast together, pancakes and eggs and bacon that Vanessa would have had a stroke over. We walked on the beach and collected shells. We built a fort out of blankets in the living room and ate lunch inside it. We played board games and read books and watched movies that were probably too old for him, but he didn't care. We just existed together. No schedule, no optimization, no performance metrics. Just a grandmother and grandson, remembering how to love each other without interference. On Wednesday, Derek called to check in. Noah talked to him for 20 minutes, telling him about the tide pools we'd explored, and the crab we'd found, and how Richard the cat had learned to play fetch with wadded up paper. He sounds happy, Derek said, when Noah handed me the phone. I haven't heard him laugh like that in months. He's remembering how to be a kid. Thank you, Evelyn. Seriously, you're saving him. I'm just giving him space to be himself. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Harper, this is Jennifer Chen. I'm representing Derek Morrison in his custody case. Oh, hello. I wanted to reach out because the hearing next week is going to be challenging. Vanessa's legal team is arguing that Derek is alienating Noah from his mother by involving you. They're painting you as bitter and manipulative. Of course they are. I need to prepare you for the possibility that the judge may restrict contact between you and Noah pending the custody evaluation. It's not personal. It's just about maintaining the status quo until everything is sorted out. The status quo was destroying Noah. I agree, and we have evidence to support that, but judges are cautious with temporary orders. They don't want to make dramatic changes until they have all the information. So what are you saying? I'm saying enjoy this week and prepare for the possibility that it might be a while before you see Noah again. After I hung up, I stood at the window and watched Noah playing in the garden. He was digging in the dirt, probably looking for worms or beetles or whatever 7-year-olds found fascinating. The idea of giving him back to Vanessa, even temporarily, made me physically ill. But I couldn't run, couldn't hide him away. That would only make things worse. Give Vanessa ammunition to claim I was unstable, dangerous. All I could do was love him while I had him, and hope it was enough. Friday morning came too fast. Derek arrived at 10 to pick Noah up. Noah cried and begged to stay, and it took both of us 20 minutes to calm him down enough to get in the car. I'll see you soon, I promised, even though I didn't know if it was true. When? As soon as we can arrange it. That's not a real answer. It's the only one I have, sweetheart. He hugged me so hard my ribs hurt, then climbed into Derek's car without looking back. I watched them drive away until the taillights disappeared, then went inside and cried for an hour straight. The hearing was on Monday. Derek called me Sunday night to go over what might happen. Vanessa's bringing character witnesses, her colleagues, Noah's current therapist, some of our couple friends who'll say she's a devoted mother. She's paying them off. She's calling in favors, and she's got them convinced that I'm having a breakdown. that you're influencing me, that this is all about revenge over the property dispute. What about Noah? Doesn't his opinion matter? He's 7. The judge will consider his feelings, but he won't be the deciding factor. Derek paused. Evelyn, I need you to be prepared for this to go badly. Vanessa's lawyers are expensive for a reason. So we're going to lose. I'm saying it's going to be a fight. Monday, I stayed by my phone all day. Derek had said he'd call as soon as the hearing was over. 1 o'clock came and went. Then 2, 3. At 4:30 my phone finally rang. We got temporary joint custody, Derek said, and he sounded exhausted. 50-50 split, week on, week off. That's good, right? It's better than I expected, honestly. Vanessa wanted full custody with supervised visitation for me. The judge didn't buy it. What about me? Can I see Noah? Silence. Derek? The judge restricted contact between you and Noah until the full custody evaluation is complete. Vanessa's team argued successfully that your presence was a destabilizing influence, that Noah needed time with both parents without outside interference. Outside interference? I'm his grandmother. I know, and my lawyer argued that. But the judge wants to maintain family equilibrium during the evaluation period. How long? 6 weeks, maybe 8. 6 weeks. 2 months of Noah thinking I'd abandoned him again. Derek, he's going to think I don't want him. I'll explain it to him. I'll make sure he understands. Will you? Or will Vanessa get to him first and spin it her way? I'll do my best, Evelyn. That's all I can promise. After we hung up, I walked down to the beach and screamed at the ocean until my throat was raw. This wasn't fair. None of this was fair. But life had never promised me fair. It had only promised me choices. And I could either crumble under the weight of those 6 weeks, or I could trust that the foundation I'd built with Noah was strong enough to survive. I chose trust. The next 6 weeks were torture. Every day I wanted to call, to text Derek and beg for updates. But Jennifer Chen had warned me that any attempt to circumvent the judge's order could be used against us. So I waited. I kept busy. Painted the fence, reorganized the garden, volunteered extra hours at the library, had coffee with Patricia and the other women who'd become something like friends. But every night I stood at Noah's bedroom door and looked at the empty bed with the planet sheets, and I wondered if he was okay, if he knew I was thinking about him, if he believed I'd come back. Week 5, Derek called with an update. The custody evaluator wants to interview you tomorrow at 2. Can you make it? Of course. Evelyn, this is important. She's going to ask about your relationship with Noah, your living situation, your feelings about Vanessa. Be honest, but be careful. Everything you say goes in the report. I understand. The evaluator was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Reeves. She met me in her office, neutral, professional, slightly cold. Mrs. Harper, thank you for coming in. Of course. She had a file in front of her, probably everything Vanessa's lawyers had compiled to paint me as the villain. I want to start by asking about your relationship with your daughter. Can you describe it? I took a breath. Complicated. Can you elaborate? Vanessa and I have fundamentally different values. She measures worth by achievement and status. I measure it by love and connection. That's caused conflict. What kind of conflict? The kind where she asked me to leave her home after 5 years of living there and helping raise her son. The kind where she cut me off from my grandson without explanation. The kind where she's using this custody battle to punish both me and her husband for not submitting to her control. Dr. Reeves made notes. That's a strong accusation. It's an accurate one. Miss Morrison's legal team claims you're bitter about property disputes, that this is financially motivated. My late husband left me a house, his house to leave. Vanessa wanted it. I said no. If standing up for myself makes me bitter, then fine. I'm bitter. And your involvement with Noah, Miss Morrison claims you're attempting to alienate her son from her. I'm loving a child who desperately needs love. If that alienates him, from a mother who treats him like a performance metric. That's on her, not me. More notes. You have strong feelings about Miss Morrison's parenting. I have strong feelings about any parenting that causes a 7-year-old to have nightmares and anxiety attacks. Yes. Dr. Reeves looked up at me. Mrs. Harper, I'm going to be honest with you. Your anger toward your daughter is palpable. Of course it is. She threw me away like garbage. She's hurting my grandson. Why wouldn't I be angry? Because anger, justified or not, can cloud judgment, can make people do things that aren't in a child's best interest. Everything I've done has been in Noah's best interest, giving him space to be himself, letting him feel his feelings, loving him without conditions. If that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. She was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me about the week Noah spent with you. I told her. Everything, the cookies and the beach walks and the blanket fort, the conversations and the laughter and the tears, the way Noah had slowly relaxed, slowly remembered how to be a kid. He sounds like he was happy, Dr. Reeves said. He was, for the first time in months. And when he left, he cried, begged to stay. Derek and I had to convince him that leaving didn't mean losing me again. Do you think he believed you? I don't know, I admitted. I hope so. She made more notes, then closed the file. Thank you, Mrs. Harper. I think I have what I need. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you believe me about Vanessa, about what she's doing to Noah? Dr. Reeves was quiet for a long moment. Then, I believe you love your grandson very much, and I believe the situation is more complicated than either side is presenting. That's all I can say. I left feeling like I'd failed, like my anger had proven Vanessa's point, that I was bitter, unstable, too emotional to be trusted. But then I thought about Noah, about the way he'd laughed building that blanket fort, the way he'd said I love you before bed, the way he'd felt safe enough to cry in my arms. Whatever the report said, that was real, that mattered. Week 6, Derek called with news. Dr. Reeves submitted her report. The final hearing is scheduled for January 15th. What did she say? I haven't seen the full report. My lawyer got a summary. She's recommending that I get primary custody, with Vanessa having parenting time every other weekend and Wednesday nights. That's good, right? It's better than good. It's almost everything we asked for. And me? Did she mention me? Yes. Derek's voice softened. She said Noah has a strong, healthy attachment to you, that your presence in his life is beneficial. She's recommending unrestricted contact. I started crying and couldn't stop. Evelyn, when can I see him? My lawyer is filing an emergency motion to modify the temporary order based on Dr. Reeves's recommendation. If the judge grants it, you could see Noah this weekend. If the hearing is tomorrow, I'll call you as soon as I know. That night, I cleaned Noah's room again, changed the sheets, dusted the books, made sure everything was ready, just in case. The next day, Derek called at 2 in the afternoon. Motion granted. I can bring Noah to you this weekend, Friday through Sunday. Really, really. The judge read Dr. Reeves's report and agreed that the restriction was doing more harm than good. What did Vanessa say? That the system is biased against mothers, that you've poisoned everyone against her, that she's going to appeal. He laughed bitterly. The usual. Friday. I was waiting on the porch when Derek's car pulled up. Noah was out before it fully stopped, running toward me like his life depended on it. Grandma, I caught him and we both fell over, laughing and crying and holding on too tight. You came back, he said. I told you I would. I thought you forgot about me. Never, not for a single second. Derek gave us a few minutes, then came over with Noah's bag. I'll pick him up Sunday evening, 6 o'clock. Perfect. And Evelyn, thank you for fighting for him. I didn't fight. I just refused to disappear. After Derek left, Noah and I went inside. Richard the cat was waiting, tail swishing. Richard! Noah scooped him up. I missed you so much. The cat tolerated the hug for exactly 10 seconds before squirming away. What do you want to do first? I asked. Can we make cookies? We can make anything you want. We made cookies. We built another blanket fort. We walked on the beach. We did all the ordinary, beautiful things that made life worth living. That night, after Noah was asleep, I stood on the porch and looked at the ocean under a sky full of stars. 6 months ago, I'd been sitting in a law office signing papers while my daughter told me I wasn't family, while she calculated my worth and found it wanting. Now I was standing in the house my husband had protected for me, with my grandson sleeping in the next room, and a future that looked nothing like I'd planned, but exactly like I needed. The final hearing in January was a formality. Dr. Reeves testified. Noah's teachers testified about the improvement in his behavior. Derek's evidence was presented, all those text messages and emails that showed exactly who Vanessa was when nobody was watching. Vanessa's lawyers tried, they really did, but you can't argue with a child's happiness, can't explain away the documented evidence of emotional abuse, can't make a judge believe that cutting off a grandmother who clearly loved her grandson was anything other than cruelty. Derek got primary custody. Vanessa got every other weekend, and one evening a week I got unrestricted visitation rights, written into the custody order so she couldn't take Noah away from me ever again. After the hearing, Vanessa cornered me in the hallway outside the courtroom. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You've destroyed my family." "I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself. He was my son." "He still is your son. The judge gave you parenting time, but Noah isn't property, Vanessa. He's a person, and he deserves better than what you were giving him." "You turned him against me." "No, you did that by treating him like a project instead of a child, by measuring his worth by his achievements, by making him feel like he had to earn your love." I looked at her, really looked at her. "I tried to love you the same way I love Noah, unconditionally, without keeping score. And you hated me for it because unconditional love meant I saw who you really were, and you couldn't stand that. You don't know anything about me. I know you're my daughter. I know I'll always love you even though I don't like you very much right now. And I know that someday when you're ready, if you want to do the work to be different, I'll be here. Don't hold your breath." "I won't, but the offer stands." She walked away without another word. I watched her go and felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, not victory, just sadness, for the relationship we'd never have, for the mother I tried to be and the daughter who couldn't accept it. But mostly relief, because I'd survived. I'd stood up for myself and for Noah, and we'd both come out the other side. That weekend, Derek brought Noah to stay with me for 2 weeks while he set up his new apartment. We fell into an easy routine. Breakfast together, beach walks, reading before bed, Richard the cat sleeping between us on the couch. One morning Noah looked up from his cereal and said, "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Mom will ever be nice?" I thought about lying, about giving him false hope that Vanessa would change, but Noah deserved honesty. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people have a hard time learning how to be kind, but that's not your fault, and it's not your job to fix her. Dad says I should still love her." You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Those two things can both be true. He thought about that then. "I think I love her, but I don't miss her. Is that bad?" "No, that's honest, and honest is always better than pretending." "Okay." He went back to his cereal. Then, "I miss being here when I'm at Dad's apartment." "You can come here whenever you want. This is your home too." "Really? Really? Your room is always here, waiting for you." He smiled. A real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in almost a year. "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, Noah." Derek and Noah moved into their apartment in February, but Noah spent most weekends with me. Sometimes Derek came too, and the three of us would cook dinner together or play board games, or just exist in the same space without tension. In March, Derek started dating someone, a teacher at Noah's school who was kind and funny and didn't try to replace anyone. Noah liked her. That was enough for me. In April, I got a letter from Vanessa, not an email, an actual handwritten letter. It was short. Mom, I'm in therapy. Not the kind where someone tells me what I want to hear. Real therapy. It's hard. I'm angry most of the time. At you, at Derek, at the situation. But mostly I'm angry at myself. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if I want to. But I'm trying to understand why I am the way I am. Why I hurt people who love me. Why I can't seem to stop measuring worth by achievement. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. Vanessa. I read that letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because Vanessa needed to do this work for herself. Not for me. Not for Noah. For herself. If she ever got there, I'd be waiting. But I wasn't holding my breath. In May, on what would have been Richard's birthday, Noah and I took flowers to the cemetery. We stood by his grave and told him about everything that had happened. Your dad would be proud of you, I told Noah. He didn't know me, Noah said. I was only 3 when he died. He knew you enough to love you, and he made sure I'd always have a place for you. That's love, sweetheart. Planning for people's future happiness, even when you won't be there to see it. We sat by the grave for a while, not talking, just being. Then Noah said, Grandma, I'm glad you didn't die too. Me too, baby. And I'm glad you fought for me. I'll always fight for you, always. He leaned against me and we watched the sun set over the hills where Richard was resting. Now, it's been almost a year since that day in the law office, a year since I signed those papers and walked away from the life I'd built around other people's needs. Noah is 8 now. He's thriving. His teachers say he's more confident, more engaged, more himself. He still sees Vanessa every other weekend, but he doesn't cry about it anymore. Just accepts it as part of his life. Derek settled into his role as primary parent. He's not perfect. Nobody is. But he's present. He's trying. That's all anyone can ask. Vanessa and I don't talk. Maybe someday we will. Maybe we won't. I've made peace with both possibilities. The house Richard left me is worth even more now than it was a year ago. Developers keep calling, offering obscene amounts of money. I always say no. This isn't about money. It never was. It's about having a place that's mine. A place where Noah can come and just be a kid. A place where the ocean reminds me every day that some things are bigger than family drama and custody battles and property disputes. Some things just are. Eternal and indifferent, and somehow comforting. I stand on my porch most evenings and watch the sunset. Richard the cat sits beside me purring. Sometimes Noah is here too, telling me about school or friends or whatever 8-year-olds think about. And I think about how close I came to believing Vanessa's version of my worth. How I almost accepted that I was disposable, forgettable, nothing without someone else defining my value. But I'm not nothing. I'm a mother who loved her daughter even when she didn't deserve it. I'm a grandmother who fought for her grandson when nobody else would. I'm a woman who survived being thrown away and built something beautiful from the pieces. I'm Evelyn Harper. I'm 67 years old. And I'm standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean in a house that nobody can take from me, with a grandson who knows he's loved unconditionally, and a future that's entirely my own. That's not nothing. That's everything. And it was worth every painful step it took to get here.